Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that you watch this clip. You see, I'm already at the Prezi, and this is the first thing I want to tell you. So the last three clips you saw were about the eyes, and if you want to test yourself on the eyes, there is a form, and you can find it at slide D10 out of 10. And yeah, you can test yourself. After you submitted it, you get the answers, the right answers. And I hope, of course, you have them all right. All right, so let's go to the topic for today, which is about the ears. We're going to talk about section 3.3, the whole of it. So what I'm going to talk about is what is in your ear, what is sound, and how does how does it reach your inner ear and your brain. Okay, so when we go to the outer ear, we have the first thing it reaches is the auricle, and the auricle is also called the pinna. It's yeah, what you see here on the outside or in your book. The elephants have very big auricles. All right, so this picture, this film is running, and it shows the outer ear. So here we have the auricle, and here we have the ear canal, or in your book called the auditory canal. You saw that in the clip. It's called pinna, and your book calls it auricle. It's the same. Okay, let's say it's the same. It's not exactly the same, but let's say it's the same. All right. So you see that waves are coming in here already, and that gives already an idea of what sound is. Sound is a wave, a sound wave. It's a wave in the air. So later on, I'll tell you more about sound waves. But for now, let's say it's a vibration, trilling in the air. Okay, so you see that it hits something here. And what it hits here, do you already know what it is? Maybe you know it already in Dutch. In Dutch, it's called trommelvlies. Well, in English, it's almost the same. It's called eardrum. So vibrations, which are caught by the auricle, are sent through the auditory canal onto the eardrum. So the eardrum then vibrates and it brings these little bones in a vibration state. This vibration state of the bones here, and those bones are called the ossicles. So the ossicles are three tiny little bones which vibrate because the eardrum vibrates because waves of sounds hit it. Okay, so the ossicles, there's a funny fact about the ossicles. Your ossicles are still as large as they were at the moment of your birth, and mine as well. So they never change in size. So all your other bones grow, right? But your ossicles, they stay the same. And as you already saw, it pointed out another tube here, which is down here. It's called the Eustachian Tube. So more about that later. So then the ossicles are going to transfer the vibration to this purple structure. And this purple structure, this snail housing thing like, is called the cochlea. And inside the cochlea, there is a fluid. And so the ossicles then guide it to the cochlea. And inside that fluid, there are tiny little hairs, which are the receptor cells. So when those hairs are going to vibrate, they generate an impulse, and that impulse travels through the auditory nerve into the brain. Okay, so you see that it's now vibrating. That means a lot of sound is coming in, and at the same time, you see that it generates impulses through the auditory nerve and gets into the brain. You can forget about the other names, we don't have to know that. So when it gets into the brain, it is there recognized by the sensory cortex, and you become aware that you're, for example, listening to music or listening right now to my voice. Okay, so there is something called the Eustachian Tube, and let me see if I can point it real quick here. I think it was around here somewhere. Let me see. There it shows. No, it wasn't. The ossicles, maybe. Yeah, here it is. See, we've got the Eustachian Tube. And the Eustachian Tube, it connects the pharynx, which is your throat, to this part. And this part is called the tympanic cavity. And the Eustachian Tube connects it because it needs to keep the pressure the same. So there is an air pressure going on here, and there is air pressure going on here. And you might notice when you've once traveled in an airplane or so, or you dive underwater, you feel there is pressure either from this side in your ear or from this side. And what do? You clear your ears. How do you do that? You close your nose and you blow on it. You can also do that by swallowing, slikken, and also by yawning. Ooh. On that moment, the Eustachian tube opens and the air pressure is then leveled, so in the tympanic cavity and in the pharynx. So that's a very important thing, because if it doesn't so, it's very hard to hear things. Maybe you've noticed that when you're in an airplane and you try to understand what someone is next to you saying, when the air pressure is not right, it's very hard for you to understand them, because your eardrum cannot vibrate freely and therefore cannot conduct it to the ossicles and not conduct it to the cochlea. Okay, let's go to the next one. If you want to check it out, be free to do so. It's E2 out of 8. And skip this one for now. E4 out of 8. Now, what is sound? Sound is the vibration in a medium. The medium is everything that can vibrate. So right now, I'm vibrating the air by speaking, and that reaches the microphone, and now it reaches your ears via the speakers. But it can also be water. Water is also a medium. It can be anything. So, for example, let me get something. So what I have here is a Tibetan singing bowl, and this bowl, I can vibrate it with the stick. See? Now I'm vibrating the metal in here, and the metal is vibrating then the air around, and that's why you can hear. That's why no one can hear anything in a vacuum in space, for example. Okay, so vibration in medium. The pitch of the sound is the amount of vibrations per second or hertz. So the pitch of the sound, it says, is the amount of vibration. So if it's a low vibration, so less times vibrating, then it's a low pitch sound, like my voice is now low. And when it's a high vibration, it's a high pitch sound. Okay, so there is vibrations going on, and if there's more vibrations per second, it's a higher hertz, and if there's less vibrations, it's a lower hertz. Okay, then the loudness of the sound is how big this vibration wave is. It's called the amplitude, and it's noted in decibel. Maybe you've heard of that, dB, or you see decibel killer, or you see whatever. So I think you might have heard of that, decibels. And so when I'm speaking with a very soft voice, it's a low decibel. But when I speak out loud, it's higher decibels, because the amplitude is now quite high. Okay, so that's more like shouting, right? So humans have a hearing range, and the hearing range is from 20 hertz, which is a really low bass sound, up to 20,000 hertz or 20 kilohertz. And this 20 kilohertz, what is 20 kilohertz? For example, mosquito zooming, right? It's around 16,000. Or old TVs, they have that really strange ringing noise. It's around 18 or 19,000. Well, if you grow older, then it's harder for your body to hear those sounds, and therefore to scare youngsters away from places they don't want to, sometimes they make those really irritating beeping sounds. You might have heard them around the shopping mall or so, and that's to scare you away, because the older people can't hear them. Our most sensitive range is from 500 hertz to 5 kilohertz, and that's also where our voices are. Especially baby voices are there, around the 4 or 5 kilohertz, and baby voices were very sensitive for baby voices. And also all the alarms are around there, so to get our attention. Yes, so let us move on. So this is the last clip I'm gonna explain. And this one, I advise you to listen it with headphones because it's awesome. It's called binaural sounds, but find out for yourself. Okay, let's jump into this one about what is sound. Okay, so here it says already, sound is wave. Yes, sound is a wave. And like water, sound also ripples. But with water, with a drop a rock into a water or so, then the water itself is gonna ripple, and now the water is the medium. But for sound, mostly the air is the medium. Okay, so let us snap here to this part of this graph. And I talk you through, it's not that hard. So when all the wave is on this dotted line, there's no sound at all. So when this peak is here, and it says sound always goes in a wave. So there's a crest and a trough, and a crest and a trough. So the distance between this dotted line and the trough, or the dotted line and the crest, is called the amplitude. And remember, the amplitude, it's the volume of the sound, and therefore the decibels of the sound. If the amplitude is high, then the sound is loud. And it also says frequency. So you see that word wavelength here. So when this would be a second, this would be 0 second, and this would be 1 second, then this would be 1, 2 hertz. So there are 2 complete waves in this second. So this is a sound of 2 hertz. Is that audible? Can we hear that sound? No. We need at least 20 of those waves in a second, and that's 20 hertz. So if there is like 200 or so in a second, it would sound like brrr. If it's like 500, then it sounds like so there are the frequency determines the pitch. Of de frequentie zegt dus hoe hoog of hoe laag de toon is. Okay, so that's about sound. Sound is a wave, and it has a wavelength, and the amplitude is the distance from the dotted line to the trough or to the crest, and that's how loud the sound is. And the more of these crests or complete waves there are in a second, the more often it happens, the higher the frequency, so the higher the hertz, because hertz means frequency per second. So that's about it. Thank you for your attention, and yeah, good luck studying.